Hello everyone, Thunderegg here. So in today's video I want to talk about Shenhe and exactly what her model, her lore and her character has gone through before her initial designs all the way back in 1.3 up to this point. Of course, for this video, still the old rule for my channel, I'll not be covering any leaks. Everything I'll be covering was rumors, that was not leaks, that was sort of talked about on a broader scale ahead of time. And for anything, I'll not be covering her current kit, her damage numbers and stuff like that. If you're interested, there are sources where you can look those numbers up. I'll not be covering any of those at all. So with that said, let's first start off when is her first into came of the side of some players. So Shenhe was first theorized to be a playable character at some point, pretty much by the end of 1.3 or in the middle of 1.3, because that was around the Lantern Rite timing, and on top Gangyu was released just not too long ago. So at that time, people were theorizing that Shenhe, i.e. Cloud Retainer, is going to be playable. Now, of course, we know that the current version of Shenhe we know is not Cloud Retainer. The reason is because her name actually got changed. The English version stayed the same, but I'll put the Chinese up here. As you can see, there is quite a bit of a difference on the left side of the first character. Exactly what this means, originally her name means Shenhe. Shen translates to god or magical or mythical, and He translates to crane, so it essentially means mythical crane. We all know who that is pointing to, Cloud Retainer. Later on, they changed her name. I believe the name was not officially changed until her official release. Some forums in Chinese were still calling her Shenhe even to this day, but now her actual name is changed to Shenhe. It's just the pronunciation difference is just in the tone you say it. There is no pronunciation difference in the way you say these two words. It's just the pure tone of the first character. So now Shen becomes just her last name actually, and He is her first name. So in Chinese, first name is generally any character you can come up with. Generally speaking, 1 to 2 characters. So in this case, it's 1 character and still means crane. No problem, that's just her first name now. And Shen, of course, is her last name in China, and I believe in Asia in general. Last name goes first. And of course, if you want another character that's named Shen, Kung Fu Panda, I believe the second movie, the antagonist Lord Shen is also the same last name. And it's also a bird. Coincidence? I don't know. Just thought it was funny to bring that up. So that was what's going on with her name. Let's talk a little bit about her kit. Of course, everything we know about her kit up to this point I'll mention is that she's a polearm cryo user. That's all I'll mention about her current kit. Her kit before, we know a very well version of her kit before, and that is exactly Eula's kit. And that is right, the reason why Shenhe was not released early was because Eula took her entire kit, Shenhe's model entirely was scrapped, and she was sort of reworked to her current model, which now she's a cryo polearm user instead of a cryo claymore user who does physical DPS. The main argument for why Shenhe's models was originally Eula's model is because of several reasons. First of all, Gangyu is of the cryo element. Back in the old days when the Adaptai was still doing most of the battles during the Archon Wars, their visions were not around. Adapters were all capable of manipulating elements without visions, and that is probably still the case to this day, although they don't do that anymore. And of course, Gangyu being of the cryo manipulation, someone has taught her that. So as a result, it feels most likely that Shenhe, the Cloud Retainer, would be of the cryo element as well. On top, at that point it was going around because 1.2 was Gangyu's release. Originally, Shenhe's release was planned for around 1.5, which is exactly Eula's release time. I'll go back to why later. But at that point, if they release 2 cryo DPS pretty much back-to-back 3 patches apart, either Shenhe has to pretty much power crap Gangyu, or on top Shenhe has to be on par with Gangyu, which leads to overall power creeping because Gangyu at 1.2's power level was considered quite a power creep. So in the end, what they decided was Shenhe was going to be another cryo DPS, but her main damage is going to be swapped to physical instead of cryo. So this way, both they do not overlap each other in terms of competitiveness, so people will not compare their damage as cryo DPS versus cryo DPS. And overall, her damage is going to still be okay and doesn't have to be power creeping as crazy. So this is why she is going to be a physical DPS. Now, exactly the reason why they scrapped Shenhe for the 1.5 banner, it's because 1.5 was going to be a balanced banner, which means one character from Leah and one character from Mondstadt. Zhongli was very much waiting for a rerun around that point because what happened to him in 1.3 was the buff. So it makes sense to rate up Zhongli at that point, especially that Venti was rated up in 1.4 just ahead. So as a result, what ended up happening was Eula sort of just came out of nowhere. Like if you actually try to take a look at all the Genshin texts before 1.3, like before they start setting up for her appearance, Eula had zero text mentioning her. Of course, there's text mentioning the Lawrence clan, that part is already set up. But there were pretty much zero text mentioning someone by the name of Eula until pretty much by the end of 1.4 when they started confirmed that this character is going to be rated up for 1.5, they started pushing out her information slowly into the game. But before that, there were no information about Eula in the game whatsoever. This is an explanation for why Shenhe was originally supposed to take Eula's entire kit and she was supposed to be rated up for 1.5. So that's two of the most major things about Shenhe so far. And regarding her currently, I believe her release time is probably going to be 2.4. It's pretty standard at this point, 2 patches ahead of time before you release the new character. So currently it looks like Shenhe is going to be a cryo polearm user. Personally, of course, I'm not going to comment on her skills or anything. I don't know exactly how she's going to fit in any team comps or anything, but I mean, she looks pretty good and that is good enough for most people. So that's good enough for me as well. Personally, I might most likely pull for her. And of course, one last reason on why Shenhe was originally very confirmed to be released by 1.5. Of course, I cannot show you her beta images, not beta images, but her models. But actually, she got popular enough that Chinese companies were making cosplays of her models even before she was announced. So here is a cosplayer dressing in Shenhe's old model. You can see quite different from her current one. This was sold on, I believe, Taobao or somewhere Ali. Basically, this was her old model, but it was pretty popular at that point, floating around that this was going to be a playable character in the near future. So that's all I have for you for this video. Mostly just want to explain why this character was in and out for quite a while. Sometimes we'll hear news about her, sometimes we'll hear nothing about her. Some patches we'll hear her models completely deleted, and 2 patches later she's getting released. So that's all I want to explain regarding her backstory. Not actual lore wise, but what happened to her as a playable character. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.